Hi everyone, welcome to the Maritime CEO Tech Leader series powered by Ocean Technologies Group. This is the start of a new tranche of episodes sponsored by our friends Duolog, where we assess how shipping is set for technological transformation. Today's opening episode takes us to Singapore, and we're delighted to be joined by Klaus Nemcov, the Chief Innovation Officer of Eastern Pacific Shipping, one of the world's largest ship owners, with more than 14 million deadweight tons in its fleet. Now, Klaus is a perfect guy to get the ball rolling with this series because before Eastern Pacific, he was driving digital innovation at BP across Asia Pacific. He founded a gamified online education startup and was COO at Shazam. So whenever you are wondering what that music is and the answer comes, well, you can thank Klaus for that. So Klaus, look, let's get the ball rolling. This is the first of a series, so I want you to sort of set the scene for future episodes. What do you reckon will be this year's biggest digital developments in shipping?
Well, I think we have sort of almost a perfect storm, not to overstretch maritime metaphors here, of different technologies coming together and getting to the point where they can be applied. So things like artificial intelligence, machine learning, enabling things like computer vision, better communications, wearable technology, all the kinds of things that often get pioneered first on the consumer world are now getting sort of swapping into the industrial world. And maritime certainly is one of the sectors, including sort of long-term fundamental high-impact technologies like quantum computing. Even that is sort of coming to the point where people are starting to play with it. So with that, I think we'll see, in terms of more concrete developments, I think we see digitization, so replacing manual and labor-intensive processes and replacing them with digital technology, often using mobile phones. Everybody has one, everybody is used to that. On top of that, using computer vision, using the mobile for all sorts of applications. So it's digitization of process enabled, I think, by all of these technologies.
Good. Now, how do you think the pandemic changes the scope, the speed, and the focus of shipping's digitalization path?
I think COVID-19 is kind of a catalyst. It allows people to discover or to rediscover technologies that have been around for a while that now get new emphasis. So one of the key obstacles is you want to do things contactless. You want to minimize or avoid any contact between people. Now, digitization of processes is one way to do that. You don't want to have people coming on board to check paper certificates. So digitization of training certificates and all sorts of other things with trusted technology. So things like blockchain that you can actually trust, the results, the technology that uses these kinds of things. Other examples of exactly that would be drones. So we had one of our ships calling in Singapore recently, and we wanted, as we usually do, to send some people there to deliver some packages, wanted to pick up a few things. And the crew was reluctant, is sort of putting it too mildly. They didn't really want anybody to come on board because, a ship is, if people didn't have any problems with the virus for 14 days, it's probably one of the safest places on earth. So you don't want other people to come on board. So we used one of our startup companies from last year's maritime accelerator that we're doing with Techstars called F-Drones out of Singapore here. And they used a drone to deliver packages to a laden oil tanker that was 3 kilometers from shore, and then picked up some oil testing samples. So that's sort of an example of technology that might have been sort of nice to have in the past, but now it becomes almost mandatory, and you're really starting to use that. The digital certificate, you could sort of spin that a little bit further, because for training certificates, that's one thing. But one of the things that I believe is the obstacle to allow travel restrictions to ease, and obviously for crew changes, that's a big deal. If I would have all the information about where you have been, with whom you had contact, what is sort of your health declaration, but not by you filling out a form that might or might not be right, but by using technology to collect that and then to share that. You could almost imagine that would be a real-time health certificate that can only exist in a digital form. Those types of technologies that exist, that are mature, it's not a question of inventing something entirely new, would enable some of these things. So I think we see COVID-19 be an accelerator to make things much faster, to accelerate adoption of technology, to be an impetus for more innovation. I think Singapore is a great place where you have a lot of startups. Yeah, those are some of the examples I think that I can see.
You, as we mentioned at the top, previously you worked for BP. Shipping often gets a bit of a bad rap in terms of its adoption of technology. You know, it's sometimes unfairly, sometimes fairly. Anyway, given your previous employment, if you could, how do you compare shipping to oil and gas in terms of digital adoption?
That's a very interesting idea. I mean, there are a lot of similarities between oil and gas, particularly the offshore locations or, the very remote locations, big, gas liquefaction plant in Canggu or, any of the oil rigs. In some ways, there's like ships, except they don't move if they're onshore or not. But you have similar challenges in terms of crew changes. You have, similar changes often in terms of connectivity. So communication via satellite is one of, still the big bottlenecks for all of those things. So there are a lot of similarities, I think, which means I think you see a lot of the technologies, some digitizing things, using wearable, focusing a lot on seafarer health, using telemedicine and all those types of things would probably be similar. One area where oil and gas is different, oil and gas are often very large companies, and they have huge analytical and computer science groups, mainly driven by the exploration, by the upstream, where you really have lots of PhDs that do fantastic stuff. And they're often adapting technology at very advanced supercomputing, quantum technology, perhaps earlier. And the shipping industry doesn't have these pockets of highly sophisticated data analytics because even a big company like us is relatively small in terms of that kind of capability. So that's something where I think there is a difference. And that's something where I also think there is huge potential in the shipping industry. To drive forward the data analytical, to monetize data, to optimize, through analytical algorithms. And that's sort of one area where I think there's a difference.
Brilliant. Well, thank you very much indeed for your time, Klaus. We'll be back next week with another Duolog sponsored look at how technology is transforming shipping. In the meantime, stay sane and sanitize, everyone. Thank you.